Let's talk Pittsburgh Steelers trades, because this former NFL Network's insider just said the Pittsburgh Steelers are top of the list for trading for these 3 wide receivers and have been in trade talks for them at the NFL trade deadline. But first, before I get into the players that he named, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn notifications for everything Pittsburgh Steelers news and updates. Also like this video. Now, let's get right back into it. So, according to former NFL Network's insider and now Sportskedia's NFL insider, Tony Pauline said that the Steelers are eyeing 3 specific wide receivers ahead of the trade deadline. That being Denver Broncos' Courtland Sutton, the New York Giants wide receiver Darius Slayton, and the New York Jets' Mike Williams. All names that have been tied to them at one point or another within the last few months. So, as the wide receiver market continues to move rather quickly in the NFL ahead of the November 5th trade deadline, the Pittsburgh Steelers still remain in search for an answer to a year-long question at this position behind George Pickens. Because we've seen DeAndre Hopkins get moved, traded to Kansas City. We've seen Deontay Johnson get traded to the Ravens. So these teams are filling needs at the wide receiver position, the top teams in the AFC. We also seen Amari Cooper get traded to the Bills. Now, is it the Steelers' turn? Well, Tony Pauline, this was his quote about the Pittsburgh Steelers ahead of the trade deadline. Here's what he had to say about the Steelers trading for a wide receiver, or at least being in the market for one. I've twice mentioned the Pittsburgh Steelers as a team in the market to trade for a wide receiver, as they were one of the franchise keen on Davante Adams before the former Raiders wideout was moved to the New York Jets. Now sources have attached the names of 3 receivers they will look to trade for. They include Darius Slayton of the New York Giants, Mike Williams of the Jets, and Courtland Sutton of the Denver Broncos. I am told the Steelers have a lot of interest in the Broncos wideout, but it's a matter of meeting Denver's asking price, which I'm told is high. End quote. So I mentioned those other 3 receiver trades. Well, there was 4. Even Davante Adams got traded as well. So the Pittsburgh Steelers, they seem to be in the market, and Tony Pauline has said so. And those were his thoughts and his sources telling him about the Steelers' chances of landing one of those 3 wideouts. So you look at Sutton, it is a name that Pauline mentioned earlier in the week, listing the Steelers as one of 3 teams that were in on him, giving the Broncos a 50-50 chance of moving the big wide receiver ahead of the trade deadline. Looking at Sutton, the reason why he's linked to the Steelers is obviously because of Russell Wilson, the connection they had in Denver, and just a former teammate of Russell Wilson, the starting quarterback in Pittsburgh now. There's kind of familiarity in the situation, whom we spent the last 2 seasons with Denver with, and he threw 10 touchdown passes to him last season. So the connection is there. And bringing someone in with a connection to Russell Wilson, who's also a really good wide receiver, can be beneficial for this team and a true number 2 next to George Pickens, or a 1A, 1B type of situation that we've seen last year as well. So that is why he has been linked to the Pittsburgh Steelers. But you look at Mike Williams next. Why is Mike Williams linked to the Steelers? Well, Mike Williams was a player the Pittsburgh Steelers were supposed to meet with this offseason. Right after he was supposed to meet with the Jets, he was supposed to fly in to Pittsburgh and meet with the Steelers. But he signed with the Jets before he even had a chance to meet with the team, meet with the Steelers. But they were obviously interested in him. He was coming off an ACL injury, a major injury, but the Pittsburgh Steelers had plans of signing him, seeing if he's healthy enough to sign him. So there's a connection there, and there's been a connection there ever since the offseason, since reporters and insiders were saying they were going to meet with each other. So you can see why the Steelers have been linked to him recently, and that's why ever since Davante Adams got traded to the Jets, they don't really have a need for Mike Williams anymore. And if they could get a draft pick for him, with how bad their team has been, it could only be beneficial for the Jets, and that's why he may go for a later round draft pick, and the Steelers have been linked in the draft market. Now, the next player they've been linked to, per Tony Pauline, is Darius Slayton. Is there a connection there? And in my eyes, there is not. You like the other 2, like Courtland Sutton and Russell Wilson, that's the connection. Jets and the Steelers were supposed to meet this offseason. There's a connection there. But Darius Slayton is another name who Tony Pauline brings up in the trade market of the Pittsburgh Steelers being connected. But there's really no connection there from previous history or anything like that. But when you look at Darius Slayton, he doesn't turn 28 years old until January. He's in the final year of his contract, and he's a big play threat who showed out against the Steelers just this past week on Monday Night Football, putting 4 receptions, 108 yards, and the Giants lost to the Steelers 26-18. So the Darius Slayton situation is an interesting one. I'll get more into it, but NFL Network's Mike Garafolo reported Tuesday that the Giants would need to be blown away by a trade offer to move the pending free agent Darius Slayton. So Darius Slayton, he's been connected to the Steelers, but not in any specific way, other than it being listed by Tony Pauline. Now, let's talk about each person individually and who would be more beneficial in order for the Steelers. Me personally, I believe in this order, it would be really good. You add Courtland Sutton, that would be the best option available. The best player of those three. The next best player, I believe, for the Pittsburgh Steelers specific scheme would be Darius Slayton, because Mike Williams is just another jump ball, high catch rate type of player, someone really who George Pickens is. So it'd really be George Pickens, Mike Williams as the same type of receiver, but if you get a route runner like Darius Slayton, I believe that would be better for your team. But don't get me wrong, I believe Mike Williams, through his career, has been better. Darius Slayton has been just consistent over the years, but Mike Williams is a big threat. But I believe it goes Courtland Sutton, Darius Slayton, then Mike Williams. And I believe that's the order in which you would have to give up the most draft compensation would be as well. So that's the list of where I would rank those 3 wide receivers. But individually, let's talk about them. Courtland Sutton first. Courtland Sutton, he's been a big play receiver his entire career. He just has not been consistently targeted. There's some games even this season where he goes without a target. But when he does get targeted, he puts a big yardage. He's a huge touchdown guy and a big body receiver and someone who doesn't take plays off. So he would be a really good addition to the squad. If you have to give up a second round draft pick, me personally, I would not do that. A third would be the max I would give up, but hopefully it would be like a fourth. You never know, but Courtland Sutton would be the best receiver to add at this trade deadline based off who's available around the league. The Pittsburgh Steelers could use someone like him, and he could be a 1A type of 1B type of receiver with the Pittsburgh Steelers with George Pickens, and then you have Calvin Austin in the slot. And Courtland Sutton, he does like blocking as well, or at least he's engaged in the blocking and doesn't take plays off, like I said. So that's him and my thoughts on Courtland Sutton. Now let's move over to Darius Slayton and my thoughts on him. It's been reported by NFL Networks once again that he and the Giants would have to be blown away for him to be traded to a different team. So what does that mean? Does that mean a 3rd round draft pick, a 2nd round draft pick to be blown away? Well, if you have to give up that for Darius Slayton, do not trade for him. He's not worth a 2nd round draft pick, a 3rd round draft pick. Courtland Sutton is way better of a receiver. So if you are going to give up a draft pick that high, it would be for Courtland Sutton, not Darius Slayton. So you look at Darius Slayton, however, if you have to give up a 4th, a 5th, I mean personally a 5th, I would think. And what is Darius Slayton bringing to this team? He's been injured throughout his career. He's been inconsistent in terms of being on the football field, but he has been a consistent receiver. He spent his whole entire career with the Giants. It seems like he's been on them forever. So obviously the Giants like him enough to keep him around. So he's a playmaker on their team. He's a number 2 receiver for them. Is he a number 2 receiver in this league? Me personally, this is my thoughts. I don't believe that he is a true reliable number 2 receiver. Is he a number 3 receiver? Yes. But would you want him on a Super Bowl contender as your number 2 receiver? I don't believe he fits that bill. But that's my thoughts on Darius Slayton. And to be blown away by draft picks being attached to trade for him, I just don't see it happening if they have to be blown away by it. And what would they take? Are they going to be blown away by a 5th round draft pick? I don't think so. So in my eyes, that probably won't end up happening. Now, let's move over to Mike Williams, because this trade is something I could see actually happening and something similar to the Deontay Johnson trade that we just saw the Ravens make. The Ravens, I believe, gave up a 5th round draft pick for Deontay Johnson, and they also received a 6th-round draft pick. And I think that's something the Steelers can do as well. We've seen the Steelers do something like that in years prior, where they give up a draft pick, get a draft pick back. And I believe that's what Mike Williams would cost. The Jets no longer have a need for Mike Williams. They spend, I believe, around $10 to $13 million in his salary for the next 2 years. So if they could give up a draft pick and the Steelers give up a draft pick, then I believe that's the deal that would be made. And that's similar to what the Ravens did with Carolina. I believe it would be a 5th-round draft pick for him, and then you would also get a 6th-round draft pick back, or maybe even a 6th-round draft pick and a 7th-round back. But I believe that's the type of trade that it would take. And it would not take more than a 5th-round draft pick for Mike Williams. And I believe that's the best case scenario for the Steelers, not giving up huge draft compensation for someone, but also getting someone of a high caliber type of player before his ACL injury in Mike Williams. That I believe will end up happening if a trade does happen. The other ones I don't really see like it will happen, but Mike Williams is the only one I could really see happening and not giving up too much in return for him. But also getting a huge playmaker on the outside next to George Pickens and someone who's not going to take away snaps from Calvin Austin, because Mike Williams is not that intermediate type of player or the slant type of receiver or drag out receiver. He's going to be the deep ball threat that George Pickens is as well. Anyway, that's the end of this video. This is all talk, speculation, and just going based off reports by insiders. But this was just my thoughts on the 3 receivers that Tony Pauline listed that the Pittsburgh Steelers have been in trade talks for and are interested in come the trade deadline this November 5th. So that's my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Who do you believe are those 3 receivers that the Pittsburgh Steelers will get or target the most? And do you believe that the Steelers should trade for a wide receiver, or don't you? And do you believe that Calvin Austin has proven he could be the top guy next to George Pickens? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And also make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn notifications for everything Pittsburgh Steelers news, updates, highlights, analysis reports, everything like that. I cover everything Pittsburgh Steelers. I'll continue to, even if it's rumors or breaking news. So, like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications. Until next time, I'll see you guys all later. I'm out. Peace.